Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Gerald Cotten? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, then I'll move to my analysis. Gerald Cotten was born on May 11, 1988. He went by the name Jerry. He lived in Bellevue, Ontario, Canada. His parents owned an antique store. At the age of 15, Jerry started running Ponzi schemes, but he did not attract negative attention or get arrested. In 2010, he graduated with a bachelor's degree in business administration from a business school in Toronto. About 2 years after graduating, he moved to Vancouver, British Columbia. He became interested in Bitcoin and joined a group of entrepreneurs who had a similar interest. In November of 2013, he founded a company called QuadrigaCX, which was an online currency exchange for Bitcoin. He had a business partner named Michael Patron, who had changed his name from Omar Danani. Michael had been convicted of identity theft, grand theft, and burglary. He served time in federal prison in the United States before being deported to Canada in 2007. There was a strong local community supporting Quadriga. Many people were excited about it. A Bitcoin exchange, in theory, is able to sidestep some of the problems with banks. There is no central authority with cryptocurrency. Rather, all transactions are stored on a public record referred to as a blockchain. The company had an ATM where people could deposit and withdraw money, so it had a few different conveniences associated with it. Jerry became a bit of a celebrity in Canada. People looked at him as a hero, someone who was allowing people to avoid the traditional banking industry. His company sponsored Bitcoin conventions and educational events. Jerry was well liked. People thought he knew what he was talking about. In February of 2014, the company's largest competitor suspended operations after hackers had stolen $473 million from the accounts of customers. About a year later, 2 other currency exchanges in Canada closed. Just like that, Quadriga was the dominant Bitcoin exchange in Canada. The company attempted to go public on the Canadian Securities Exchange. They raised $850,000, but in early 2016, the plans were abandoned. That same year, Jerry Cotten became the sole director of the company when all the other directors resigned. He had a few contractors working for the company, but there were no employees. In 2017, interest in Bitcoin increased dramatically. The company processed a large volume of trading, almost $2 billion that year, from 363,000 individual accounts. The company struggled to keep up with the volume. Quadriga did not have a formal accounting system. The company did not have their own bank accounts. Rather, they used external payment processors. They had technical difficulties with managing transactions. In June of 2017, the company lost $14 million of cryptocurrency due to a transaction protocol error. Bitcoin prices started to tumble in 2018. Quadriga customers reported problems getting their money from the exchange, like it was taking a while. Some people were concerned that they were never going to be able to withdraw their money. By this point, Jerry lived in Nova Scotia with his wife, Jennifer Robertson. He ran the business from his laptop computer. Jerry was the only one who had the keys. Only he could access the money. There was no backup plan in case something happened to him. One of the payment processors froze over $20 million. They said they couldn't figure out who owned the money, and they were unable to get in contact with the company or Jerry Cotten. It appears as though regulators were closing in on Jerry. It was only a matter of time before he was going to be in some real trouble. Customers were unable to get money from Quadriga. In late 2018, Jerry and his wife Jennifer traveled to India. They were there on their honeymoon. They also had plans to visit an orphanage designed to accommodate 12 children. The couple was sponsoring this orphanage. People found this odd because Jerry was not charitable at all. The couple arrived in Jaipur on December 8, 2018. This was their 8th day in India. Their intent was to continue traveling to get to the orphanage, which was in another city. So Jaipur was not their final stop. The couple never made it to the orphanage. Jerry died on December 9, within 25 hours of landing in Jaipur and 9 days after arriving in India. He had been taken to a hospital and diagnosed with intestinal obstruction, septic shock, perforation, and peritonitis. He went into cardiac arrest 3 times. 2 times he was revived. After the last time, he died. No autopsy was performed. The official cause of death was complications from Crohn's disease. After being embalmed, his body was returned to Canada. Jennifer didn't mention that Jerry had died for about a month, so people who had money in Quadriga had no idea that the only person who had access to the money was dead. In addition, the company continued to accept deposits until January 26. About $215 million was owed to account holders. An investigation was initiated. Eventually, $46 million was returned to investors. It was determined that $169 million was missing from the exchange. It wasn't that the funds were locked out because the passwords were lost, but rather the funds were simply not there. Gerry Cotten had been stealing funds for years, starting sometime around 2015. Investigators found mysterious transfers to personal accounts and other exchanges. Jerry had also created fake accounts and simply traded counterfeit Bitcoin. By April 2018, which was prior to Jerry's death, 6 of the external hard drives that should have contained the funds were empty. These are also referred to as cold wallets. This whole time along, Quadriga was a scam, and Gerry Cotten was a con artist. Eventually, Jennifer Robertson returned $12 million to the government under a voluntary agreement. The Canadian government presumes that Gerry Cotten is dead, but many people are not convinced. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the RCMP, refuses to exhume his body to confirm his death, despite numerous requests. Now moving to my analysis. The primary question that often comes up in connection with this case is this: is Gerald Cotten actually alive? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that he is alive. I'll start with the evidence that supports this idea. Gerry was running a criminal scheme that he knew could not continue forever. Just like a Ponzi scheme, it would come to a definitive and predictable end. It was a mathematical certainty that it would fail. Perhaps Gerry's exit strategy was faking his own death in India, a fitting conclusion to a spectacular criminal scheme. It was either that or go to prison. The managing director of the hospital where Gerry died had been convicted of fraud 2 months before Gerry's death. The staff at the hotel where Gerry was staying transported his body from the hospital to an embalmer. She refused to embalm the body because the situation was so unusual. The staff then took his body to a medical college where it was embalmed. I know that some upscale hotels offer a wide variety of services, but I cannot imagine that hotel staff regularly provided services to dead people. For one thing, who was going to tip them? This provides new meaning to the term getting stiffed. Gerald Cotten's name was misspelled on his death certificate. 12 days before Gerry arrived in India, he wrote a will. His estate was worth about $12 million. He left $100,000 to care for his 2 chihuahuas. Gerry told people that he had written all the passwords down on paper and stored the paper in a safe in his attic. When the attic was searched, 4 holes were found where the safe should have been mounted, but no safe was there. Now moving to the evidence that refutes the idea that Gerry Cotten is alive. Gerry had engaged in other schemes, but he never mentioned plans to run away. He was very focused on his lifestyle. He was not managing his money in a way consistent with planning to flee. One would think that he would be hiding money in many different accounts in preparation for a new life. He was only 30 years old. He would be expecting to be alive for many more years. That would require quite a bit of money. Instead, he bought a 51-foot yacht for $600,000. He He purchased 14 rental properties in Nova Scotia, and he bought a Cessna 400, a single-engine aircraft. He never even flew it one time, although he did know how to fly. Jerry was focused on living the high life, not disappearing. Even though Jerry was intelligent, he was immature, impulsive, and disorganized. If his plan to escape was anything like his cryptocurrency scheme, then it would have been too ill-conceived to succeed. Jerry posted a number of videos on YouTube, which I think give good insight into his level of maturity. Just a few examples of his behavior in his videos. He knocked over a tower of Jenga blocks with a large stuffed bear. He tried to set various items on fire like walnuts and hair mousse. He burned a Winnie the Pooh doll and a stuffed duck, and he tried to melt Canadian money in a microwave. Essentially, his videos are what somebody would expect if they gave matches and a camera to a high sensation-seeking 13-year-old boy. Jerry was in his early 20s when he made these videos. So investors in Quadriga probably should have looked at these videos before putting the money in. I can't imagine looking at Gerry Cotten in those videos and thinking, I would trust that guy with hundreds of millions of dollars. Jerry spent a lot of time with his wife. They traveled all over the world on a yacht and in airplanes. It's hard to believe he would just disappear and not include her in the plan. If he was trying to get away from her, why would he fake his own death with her right there? Jerry had Crohn's disease. This is a chronic disease for which there is no cure. The mortality rate for Crohn's disease is between 20 and 70% higher than expected. It's not impossible that a 30-year-old with Crohn's disease would die suddenly, although it is still quite unlikely. Even though a conspiracy is possible, many people indicated that Jerry was in fact dead, including the physician who pronounced him dead. Also, one would think that if there was any question about his status, the RCMP would exhume his body. He already embarrassed them significantly. I cannot imagine they would give him one more opportunity to do that. When considering the evidence, do I think that Gerald Cotten is alive? No, I don't. I think that he was extremely unlucky. The timing of his death is highly suspicious, but probably a coincidence. Perhaps he managed his Crohn's disease like he managed the rest of his life. He just did whatever he wanted. Maybe because he was so young, he figured he was not at risk to die. Moving to the next question. How did Jerry manipulate and defraud so many people? Jerry's personality helped him to facilitate the fraud. People were quite suspicious of what he was doing, but they genuinely liked him. He seemed to be pro-social, friendly, outgoing, innovative, and he did not like financial institutions. That last point gained him a lot of support. The major selling point of cryptocurrency was to make people less dependent on banks. The characteristics observed in some of his victims also facilitated the fraud. Many account holders were only involved because they wanted a chance to earn significant returns. This was more than just a safe place to keep money. They wanted to earn a lot of money from this enterprise. This was their big chance to score a lot of cash. It was almost like a get-rich-quick scheme. Some people were motivated by the excitement. It was almost like gambling. As it turns out, it was a lot like gambling. Some of the investors took out multiple loans to buy cryptocurrency, millions of dollars of loans. They were basically just playing the market. Some of them would have lost money even if Quadriga was legitimate. Jerry knew how to position his scheme in order to attract people who would fall for his scheme. Moving to the next question, was Gerald Cotten a master criminal? Because this case involves cryptocurrency and online exchanges, there is a tendency to think of it as highly technical and complex. We know that the RCMP really struggled to understand cryptocurrency exchanges when they started their investigation. One expert who was advising the police suggested their questions were shockingly basic and indicative of having virtually no understanding of the topic. Some of the experts didn't do much better themselves. For example, one court-appointed law firm who hired experts accidentally transferred $350,000 into an account that was not accessible. These types of difficulties led to this belief that Gerald Cotten must have been some type of criminal genius. Only he could understand the complexities of this new cryptocurrency. In reality, cryptocurrency may be relatively new, but it's not really shockingly complex. Other than the decentralized public nature of how it's exchanged, cryptocurrency is just another currency. It's something that only has value because people believe it has value. It is not backed up by any valuable product. Somebody can't trade in cryptocurrency for something that has utility. It really just exists in a digital world. Gerald Cotten was certainly intelligent, but he was not sophisticated. He did not disguise his activities well. His scheme was poorly planned, and he did not appear to have an exit strategy. Jerry was only successful to any degree because many people really believed in cryptocurrency, and they so desperately wanted his exchange to be successful and legitimate. Whenever a new financial product comes out, it's a little bit like the Wild West. The regulations are not dialed in and refined. There are loopholes. This environment is attractive to con artists. Jerry Cotten was simply an opportunist who was looking for a new frontier of criminality. I find it curious that cryptocurrency was established, in part, because people didn't believe that individuals or companies could be trusted with currency. Only the public as a whole could be trusted. Cryptocurrency is transparent, so everybody can see the transfers. Everybody can see who is doing what with the currency. Yet Jerry Cotten's exchange was controlled by just one person, Gerald Cotten. He managed to put himself in charge of hundreds of millions of dollars in a system designed to avoid just that occurrence. Some may argue that the investors had financial transparency, but they didn't have personality transparency. That is, they didn't understand who Gerald Cotten was. However, I think that Jerry did actually show people who he was. He presented as an impulsive, disorganized, non-charitable, sensation-seeking, fire-setting, and spendthrift criminal with a history of engaging in Ponzi schemes. Investors simply did not want to believe what they could observe through the transparency which was available. Those are my thoughts on the case of Gerald Cotten. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.